Welcome to the Gene Positive Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Campbell, and today we have a special guest, Caitlyn Oravkin, who's going to be sharing her perspective on friendships and Huntington's disease. Caitlyn, do you want to say hi to everyone listening? And do you want to share a little bit about who you are and how we know each other?
Yeah, definitely. So, hello, I'm Caitlin. I've been Diane's friend for, oh my God, I don't know, like 15 years now. I don't know, how old were we? 12 years? 12 years. At least 12 years. So I've been around for all of the journeys and all of the things, especially in adulthood. She's my best friend, and I love her dearly, and I'm excited to talk about things today.
Well, thanks very much for joining today. I'm really excited to have you on as well. I think Caitlyn's going to give some really awesome insights as to what it's like to be in a friendship relationship with somebody that has Huntington's themselves or deals with Huntington's in their family. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
What was your understanding or awareness of Huntington's disease before you met me?
Before I met you, I don't think that there was that full understanding of Huntington's disease. I knew about other things like Parkinson's disease, especially because my grandfather had it and I watched him struggle through it over the course of my childhood. Then, when you and I became friends, I learned about it due to, your own family dynamics and things like that. And then from there, I learned more about what Huntington's was because I wanted to support you. I wanted to be your friend. I wanted to be there and show up. And so that helped me learn, I think, the differences between Huntington's and Parkinson's. There was something that I read recently in preparation for this podcast, and it put it in a really cool way. It said, Parkinson's is like when you think of an orchestra, you're losing the conductor, the dopamine's turned off as the disease progresses. Huntington's is that the whole orchestra has faulty music to play off of and they're losing control and they go into chaos over time. And I thought that that really put it into perspective. And I think for people who don't have Huntington's disease, that allows them to conceptualize maybe what a loved one might be going through when they get this news or as time progresses on to kind of have that mental image in their head. Because it is something that is a neurodegenerative disorder and it carries a lot of weight for the person who has to carry it and has that diagnosis. And so I think that knowing about the cognitive symptoms or what other components of Huntington's can affect someone is really important. And so over time, obviously, I've learned more due to, your journey personally with family members and then for yourself. And I think that's kind of what set the tone to where we are now and how I'm supporting you as you move forward with your life and your life journey.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think I'm going to use that analogy now moving forward. I'm going to steal that from you because I don't think I've heard that before. How has your understanding and awareness of Huntington's disease developed over the course of our friendship?
I think what's really important is that in being your friend and knowing the journey that you're going on, I've taken the position of wanting to learn more. While you have also been telling me things and I've been learning from you as you've learned about your journey and your diagnosis, I think I have also wanted to learn more in supporting you naturally by being your friend. And I think that's an important thing for people to consider is how am I showing up for this person? How am I taking the time to learn about what they're going through? Because that comes from a place of empathy. And I think that's a really important concept for people to think about when they have a loved one who's going through something like this.
What is it like to support a friend that has a family member who suffers from Huntington's disease?
I think one thing that I've experienced or learned in supporting you is that it can it can have an emotional toll on the family member. So like in your case, I've seen you have, challenges with your mom's journey with Huntington's. I've seen how that's impacted you too, especially when we were younger and there was always this debate about do I get tested, do I not get tested? You know, that being said, I think when we were younger, I took the approach of you don't need to get tested. Why would you need to find out? Now I personally believe that that might have been bad advice at the time. I think I wanted to protect you and I wanted to support you because I saw, the relationship that you have with your mom and some of those dynamics there. And that's a very complex relationship. So I didn't want you to compare your own journey of Huntington's disease if you were to be diagnosed at that time with what you had experienced with your mom. That being said, now I think that it's given you clarity, and I think it's also probably answered some feelings that you had inside of yourself internally. I think that you knew something or you needed that peace of mind, and it wasn't I'm not saying a peace of mind in the sense of like, "Oh, I don't have Huntington's." I think that you internally knew that something needed to get checked. And instead of supporting that at the time, I thought I was protecting you, but I think now looking back, it would have been better to say like, "Yeah, Diane, go do it." And I know there was times when I kind of did say that, but not in the same way that I would say it now. Now I would say, "Yes, go do it. If your gut is telling you that something's not right, if there's something that's going to give you a greater sense of, security from information, trust that, lean into that. That's really important." And I think that's probably one thing that I've had to navigate throughout our friendship is protecting you from what you've experienced through your life, but also having to realize that you need to also go through your own experiences too. And there's times and places for my advice, and there's times and places where I need to reanalyze the situation before providing that advice. And I think that's something that I've taken away from learning about, how Huntington's impacted you through your mom and then now how it's impacting you through yourself.
Just to kind of follow up on that, I
Mhm.
think that when I reflect on it, I definitely had times in my life where that was something that was pressing and a question I wanted to get answered. But I also think that I wasn't truly in a position necessarily to find out. And I just mean in terms of comfort, in terms of supports, in terms of being stable enough to be able to kind of handle whatever kind of news came. So I agree with you and I understand where you're coming from, but I also think I needed to be ready too. And there's probably times that I wasn't, and maybe that could have been very good advice at the time.
Yeah, maybe it's twofold in the sense that on the outside, not being directly impacted by it per se, it's like you want to protect someone from creating a narrative that they like we don't want to cross the bridge before we get there. And I think that's something that is important, but how you go about that is also something for people who are supporting loved ones with Huntington's that needs to be considered too.
What was it like to find out that your friend was gene positive? Do you remember when I first shared the news with you, and what kind of thoughts or emotions did you have around it?
Yeah, I do remember. So I think having a friend that is gene positive, the first kind of when I first found out, it was more or less like I think internally, back to the previous question, there was some feelings I had for myself in the sense of like, "Ugh, did I stop her from finding out sooner? Did I impact how she thought about this before she got to this point?" At the same time, I think I also felt like now she has the answers in some regard, not all the answers, obviously, but she has some answers that give her a sense of clarity about her life or how things are going to impact her because of Huntington's being, hereditary in that sense. And so I think those were the things that were going through my mind. I also think I was really cautious of how I approached it because I don't want you to make a narrative for yourself based on other people. Your journey is your journey. You have such a strong, light, and kind heart, and I think that that can really guide you in a lot of ways if you let that shine. However, I also know being positive is something that, from what I've read, is kind of like this looming concept in the room, the elephant in the room in a way sometimes, and it can be a thief of that light. And it's not easy to just, wipe it away or have people not think about it. And so instead of taking that approach, which I know some people can do, I promised myself I wouldn't. I would be there for you through it all. And so, if we have to sit with that elephant and name the elephant George, we can. If we have to have uncomfortable conversations, we can. And so, from the moment that I learned about you being gene positive, I think that that was just the promise that I made to our relationship and the approach that I was going to take and how I came forward for that. And I have to say too, like I have a profound respect and admiration for your resilience going through this. And I think that that's something where, you've really tried to find ways in the community and shed your light and share that with people. And I think that's really important. And so in admiring you with that, I want to support you with every step. If that means educating myself, that means educating myself. If that means, helping you navigate this, I will do my best to do that. And while I can only walk with you, I can lighten the load sometimes. I can't take away the load, but I will be there the whole way through. And those are the things that I think I thought when I found out your news. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm gonna cry. It's very sweet of you. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm gonna ask kind of the follow-up. Did this change what you thought about me or our friendship in any way?
No, it
Good answer.
never would. it, these things don't, in my opinion, any diagnosis should never change a friendship. Maybe a frequency of a friendship can be changed, and maybe, there's things that happen over time that are out of people's control. And I know that sometimes friendships can get impacted as well, but it's not going to ever change our friendship. And there's always methods to finding ways to connect.
What is the easiest thing about supporting me?
Literally everything. It is easy to support you because of your kind heart and the fact that you have been there for me through so many things in my life. To this day, I still say that you're the highest standard of a boyfriend that I could have. Our relationship has been built on a lot of love, trust, and loyalty, and I think that's what makes it so easy for us to support each other. But in supporting you specifically, showing up for you, there's like is so important. For you, the power of presence is one of the greatest things that people could give. And I'm sure that it resonates with other people as well. That, when you show up and take the time to listen to the person in front of you and give them that quality time, then it allows them to have the space to think and process their thoughts. And for you, that's one of the easiest ways that someone could show up for you is allowing you to process your thoughts, go through the feelings that you need to go through, talk about the concerns that you have, and just be there. There's so many other things I could list, but I just really want to emphasize the power and presence for you.
What's the hardest thing about supporting me? And you won't hurt my feelings.
The hardest thing in supporting you, I would say, is that sometimes, less so right now, and when I say right now, I mean like in months, but sometimes I think you can carry on more than you need to with the unknown. The unknown is scary, that is true. And in some way, you also have a known at the same time. And so I think for me, the one thing is supporting that you being gene positive is part of your identity, but it's not your whole identity, nor is it your whole story. And so I think the hardest thing is trying to find that line sometimes to pull you out of that because I don't want to ever deny your reality and I don't want to deny the experiences that you're having. But I also don't want to let you get consumed by like, the complete darkness of thoughts that we can slip into. And as a result of that, I think sometimes knowing where that line is hard. That being said, I think that in our relationship, we have tools that allow us and help us in those moments to work through some of those things. And I don't know if there's a question later where I can talk about those tools, but I think that those are the things that help when it comes to sometimes those challenging elements of how to support you.
How do you make healthy boundaries to ensure you are managing your own emotions, and how involved do you get with all of what I deal with?
I follow your lead when it comes to how involved you want me to be. My job is to make sure that you know that if I say I'm going to be there and I've already listed how I'm going to be there or how I want to show up, that you trust that I'll be there based on what I've said to you. So I follow your lead in the sense that if you want to tell me something that you're going through, you'll tell me. If you've had an appointment and you need to process it and you don't want to tell me yet, that's okay too. That being said, I think my job is to declare how I can show up and what ways I can show up to you so that you have that sense of security, and it also helps you feel like you're not overstepping sometimes. Or if you are overstepping, in some sort of way. I don't know what that would look like, but like that you also know it's okay. I think communication's a really big component here too. Like you and I have a really good way of communicating with each other where in most instances, if there is something immediate, we will answer so fast because we just know that level of urgency between each other. And if we can't answer right away, there's that communication that's there. And I think that also allows us to support each other, but it also allows me to support you too, because we've communicated in certain ways that support how we show up for each other. The other thing I want to say too is how I deal with my emotions is my responsibility. It's not your responsibility. So if there's things that I'm feeling, then it's up to me to talk to you about them and ask for that space to go through them, or it's up to me to find someone else in our social circle who I can talk to them and communicate with them about things too. Because there's also the element of me having feelings that can put a slight burden on you too. Like you're already carrying something heavy. That doesn't mean you stop talking to one another. It just means that you find ways to support certain conversations over time in a way that helps each other. And if there's ever a challenge, you set up the environment to have that challenge and talk about it and work through it, but being a safe space. And I think it's okay to have safe spaces for challenges when people are going through challenging times because discomfort arises. And so I don't think it's about avoiding discomfort. I think it's about how do you set up the pillars and the boundaries to support moving through discomfort. And so I think that's how I look at it for our relationship is that I'm equally responsible for putting up boundaries or talking to you about things, but I'm equally responsible for saying, this is how I can support you as well.
How do you think our friendship has changed through this experience so far?
Through this experience specifically, I think our friendship has grown in the sense that we can rely on each other more and there is a sense of security. But I actually think it's through other challenges that we've been through in our relationship that made us stronger in how we show up for this situation. And, you know, when we've worked through challenges in the past, we came back stronger. And I think in doing that, it actually set us up for where we are now. And that's why in my previous comment, when I talked about discomfort, I think having those friendships that can go through ebbs and flows leads friendships to a place where they can also handle bigger challenges. You and I have so much love for each other. I think, we have so much respect for one another. And I think that's only gotten stronger as we've gone through this. A lot of our friendship, I have seen how you have shown up for me in so many ways. And I think that in the future, if it is my turn to take you places or take care of you or lighten the load in certain components, then I will do that, um, without a doubt. And so I think that's kind of just the natural component of our friendship is that there's that element of knowing that you have my back and I have your back. And I think what we both know is that we both will never leave. And that's probably the key aspect of our friendship now.
How do you anticipate our friendship will change as I start to develop symptoms or be more impacted by this disease?
Ooh, this is a great place for me to talk about tools. So, first and foremost, I think that as symptoms start to arise or, the impact of the disease starts to change or shape differently over time, I perceive that one of the challenges that we might have is how you take on what you're impacted by and how much it can impact your mental health. And that being said, I think for me, it's also how I support you in that space and pulling you out of that space and not taking perhaps the hard approach that maybe I might have taken in the past, where I've been more driven and assertive in certain ways. I think in the future, it might have to be a buildup and looking at certain things where it reminds you or gets you to pick out the senses, the desires, things that bring you back to your own light. I think also finding ways for us to connect on things that take us away from reality are important. So whether it's annual travel or it's annual gift boxes or finding something where we can do it and that's that space where nothing can touch us in that time. Time has stopped in that moment, whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's more frequent phone calls, um, finding ways to give you that space, I think will be really important. Because when we have the time to connect, when we have the time to laugh, that can be so healing when someone's in that dark space, no matter what they're going through. The other thing is, back to the tools, you and I have developed a scale um, from 1 to 5, bonus is 6, that you've used in our friendship when things have been stressing you out to let me know where you're at. And I think that's going to take a new shape as symptoms arise or as the disease impacts you in different ways. And I think us utilizing that scale will be something that one supports our relationship, two supports how I support you, but three, it will also support, I think, how I can engage too. So if I'm ever at a 5, let's say I'm at the top of my tier, then it might be a way to bring you to a certain space too, where, it's that check in and it's something that's so simple and it's something that we both understand. So I don't think it'll be something that we lose over time. I think it'll be something that actually supports us even further over time because it's a simple thing that you communicate. Literally, I'm a 3, I'm a 4, I'm a 1, I'm hitting a 6, maybe I'm hitting a 10. But it allows the other person to hear you and stop and pause and then reset. And so I think that's the one thing that I see being our greatest asset as we move forward is our tool, is our scale. But I also foresee that we're gonna have very emotional moments, and the only thing in that is to show up for each other. And for me, it's showing up for you, letting you know I love you. If it's, me finding a way to hightail it to wherever you live, I will do that. If it's us doing around the world like snack boxes, I will do that. If it's me finding a way to take you to a different country and I have to piggyback you at some point, well, frick, girl, I'm doing that too. I think the inevitable is that there's going to be challenges, there's going to be high emotions at certain times. The guaranteed is that I'm holding your hand the whole way through this.
Thank you.
She's
I guess you kind of touched on this a little, but what are some things that give you hope even when the future feels uncertain? And that can be our friendship or that can be within the Huntington's community as a whole.
I think some of the things that give me hope is one that there's research being, you know, developed, and I think the pace of that research has sped up a little bit in recent times or recent years compared to what it was before. So I think that's something that is really hopeful. And it's exciting to see how science can develop so quickly, and I hope it develops quicker. Uh, the other thing too with that is knowing that there's science out there that is developing more quickly. It makes me kind of hopeful that I want to see what else is around there around the world. I think sometimes we can get really isolated to what's in our own backyard and not consider other places and what they're developing. So that education part, that is something that makes me hopeful in another way, like educating myself on research, being able to have those conversations with you, because that might generate hope for you as well. I think that the other thing is knowing that you're growing within the community makes me hopeful, because if your story can impact others, that's you sharing your heart. And I think there's a strength in you sharing your heart to other people, where if you can make a difference, that'll enable you and empower you to have a sense of responsibility and accountability throughout this experience. And I think that that will do wonders for you. So I'm actually very hopeful about that. And then thirdly is our relationship, how we show up for each other, how we can laugh at anything. And just, I think the sense of security that our relationship can give is something else that makes me hopeful, in the sense that I think I can give you peace by being around. And I will always do my best to give that.
What do you wish others understood about Huntington's disease from the perspective of a friend?
I wish others understood that their friend is doing their best, that, I have a better analogy instead of an elephant in the room. They are living with a constant dementor. You don't know when it's going to arrive. You don't know how it's going to show up. And when it does, it's going to suck away their light. And so that's something that's really hard for your friends to carry. It's not easy. Don't put expectations on them for it to be easy. Make sure that you're listening. And while you have your own feelings, check in with them too. Because at the end of the day, you can escape some of the thoughts that you have by going to the gym, going to the grocery store, resetting. They can't necessarily, because there's a constant feeling of what exists for them by being gene positive or seeing symptoms coming. And it might be natural for them to catastrophize what's going to happen because there's unknowns. They don't know what they're going to experience. They don't know what the next step's going to be. They don't know if there's going to be two dementors. Like, they just don't know. I think for people who are in that friend position, in that support position, have the grace to just be there and listen. Now, I want to additionally support that by saying, while your friend might go into a certain space, try to also keep them out of maybe that victim mentality, because that's also a very dangerous space. So being that friend, yes, listen and give them that space. Be empathetic, but also find ways that you can pull them out of that in certain ways. Maybe it's a Disney movie. Maybe it's lunch. Maybe it's talking them through things where, we're not at that bridge yet. We don't have to cross it. Yes, the path ahead looks scary, but we haven't got there, and I'm going to walk with you when we get there. And that might make a little bit of a difference for them. So I think grace is really important in this situation, and a lot of love. They're going to be going through so many things. And I think that it's important to realize that you won't know those things that they're going through. For the people who have Huntington's or are gene positive, know that while you might know a certain aspect of your health and how it could impact your life. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the thing that impacts your life in a certain way. It might be another thing that can impact you. And I think, at the end of the day, there are many things that it can take life from us, and there are many things that can change our lives. You have the insight to one of those things. Your friends don't. So I think in that sense, there's also this element of trying to remind yourself that there are other things out there that can happen. We don't know what's going to impact us in life, and we're not set with just one chapter. We might have one story, but there are so many different things that can happen throughout the book. And I think that's something that's really important to remind ourselves of on both sides, being the friend who doesn't have a diagnosis of any sort, and being the friend who does.
What advice would you give to somebody that has a friend that's dealing with Huntington's disease? So somebody has a family member that has Huntington's or they personally have it. I know you touched on some feedback in the last question, but is there any other kind of advice that you would give to someone that has a friend that is experiencing this?
This also comes, I think, from me experiencing grief in different ways too in life. And I think the first thing is move your ego aside whenever it shows up. And that can be a very hard thing to do because sometimes there are things that trigger us and, we don't always know how to deal with them or they are things that are scary. But as I said earlier, the power of presence is so profound when it comes to showing up for people in your life. And I think how you show up is also really important. So if there are things that impact the quality of how you show up, not the quantity, but the quality of how you show up for your friends, then assess that, check it, and change it. And that kind of goes for like both sides, I would say too. But like I mentioned, when you have something that's like a looming dementor around you and it's there and you don't know how to deal with it and you're on the outside of that as a friend, if there are things that are going to impact how you show up for the person who's going through a hard time, then I think that's a reflection that you need to take upon yourself. And we're not perfect. No one is, but lead with love in those moments. Fundamentally, when it comes to relationships, trust is huge. And in trust, there's competence, there's care, there's trust itself, and then there's reliability. Lean into those in your relationships, and they will strengthen your relationship. So I think that's the advice that I have. And then the other thing is educate yourself, follow your friend's lead, and be there, be present with quality.
What advice would you give to someone who is struggling with aspects of HD, but they're too scared to reach out to their friends or are worried about being a burden?
You are never a burden. If you're my friend, I am there for you through thick and thin. And the love that I have for you doesn't go away because of your challenges. Burden me with your things. It's okay because we have the trust between each other. Don't take that away from me. Don't take away the opportunity for me to show up. I want to show up. I want to listen. I want to cry with you if I have to cry with you. Because if you're my friend, you're part of my whole world. And I think have the faith that people will be there. And if there are not people there right now that you fully can trust, then trust that you will find people who will be there. You will not be alone. Whether it's your community, whether it's new people that you meet, and if it is in your friend group that you can trust them, tell them. I know it's scary. grief is hard because you're grieving the life maybe that you thought you were going to have and you're not sure how to navigate this new element of it. That's okay. You're allowed to sit in that, and no one should fault you for that. You get to still make your story, though. So please don't forget that. You are a powerful person. You are a caring person. You are someone who brings light to those around you. And it's because you bring that light to those around you that people will show up for you. So just know that you're not alone. You are so loved. And I think people want to be there for their friends. We want to show up. And if we don't know how, we'll find the ways. That's the true testament to a friendship. Even if I don't know how to be there for you, I will find the way. At the end of the day, you're going through something that is really hard on both sides. Like, in the sense that I can't fix your problems. You cannot fix your problems. Neither of us can fix it. So we're both along for the ride together. And if we fail along the way, that's okay.
Can you share about what kind of resources exist or what kind of things exist that you can go to for support for you as someone that's supporting?
I think that, the first thing that I'll suggest is if you have psychological help, like a therapist or a counselor that you rely on, they're going to be the first place that you can go. Talk about it, make it be your safe space. Additionally, I think, if there is a friend group or a circle and there's certain components where you need to talk about how you're supporting a friend, then talk about that and find ways to support it together. I know, we have you and I who support each other, but I also know that there's another friend where if I really need to talk to her about, like, I don't know how to show up, I don't know what I'm doing, she would be there to give me perspective, or she'd actually be able to step in a way that I can't. And I think my job is to not hold on to that shame that I couldn't step in a certain way. She has strengths that I know I can rely on in certain areas, and I have strengths that I know that she needs to rely on me on in certain areas. And so I think having that ability to have those conversations are really important if you have that friend circle. If you don't have that friend circle, obviously find a safe space. And I also think, like, keep it open with your friend too who is gene positive or experiencing symptoms. Like, if there's something that you are struggling with, tell them that you're struggling with that thing. So because then you might be able to find a solution together. Um, that being said, for the person who is symptomatic or gene positive, if a friend is coming to you and saying, like, hey, I'm struggling because I heard this, or I don't know how to show up for you right now, I feel like, I'm not being the best I can be, or whatever it might be, don't take that as, the most negative thing in the world. Try and take that as they're reaching out to you to find a better way to show up that works for both of you. And so I think that's also important and like, in this. And then I would also say, like, education. I think that building a community where you can listen to people who either have stories about what they're going through and they experience when they're gene positive, or, you know, finding others at certain community events or things like that, because usually people do go with their partners or a family member or a friend. Connect with them, network with them, learn other people's stories. That will make all the difference. And it also allows you to build relationships too.
Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to share all of your deep and insightful perspectives with the HD community. That's all for this episode of the Gene Positive Podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And thank you for taking the time to be gene positive with me.